Ever wonder what really happens behind the scenes in construction, real estate, and development? We pull back the curtain on the new home construction industry, the real estate market, and the trends shaping it all. Discover the stories, insights, and expertise behind the process of building a new home. Join us for Trust the Process podcast, and let's build something great together. Welcome back to Trust the Process, podcast where we talk about the real estate world, new home construction, the housing industry, and everything in between. Today, we are going to talk about a couple of upcoming projects that we have. So we've talked to you guys over time about a couple of the things that we've been doing. We have upcoming projects that are just getting started. And so those had a meeting with the City of Henderson last week. And so updating on those, just kind of introducing those two projects to our listening audience as they will become conversation over time.
Right. And then using that to tell a story.
Absolutely.
Right. To say these are the things we interact with a case study versus an anecdote. So,
good.
And we had some good anecdotes.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't want to do an anecdote. So we have two new subdivisions in addition to our Serene subdivision, and they are very near each other. They're both in the Henderson jurisdiction. One is a 5-home, and one was originally supposed to be a 23-home subdivision of townhomes, and that has been whittled down substantially.
As a result, over time, but then as a result of last week's meeting, it really got whittled down.
Yes. So this is a somewhat small 2-acre parcel infill, meaning that there are neighborhoods and communities completely surrounding it. It's on an improved street. It's surrounded by a new home construction community that was about 4 or 5 years old, and then one from the 90s. All the infrastructure's there, but it's a really small parcel zoned for religious facilities.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, so we ended up with it, but we bought it from the city of Henderson by way of one other owner. So someone bought it from the city of Henderson, and then we bought it from them over the span of a couple of years. This kind of all transpired. So we're in the land acquisition phase right now. So that part's been done and secured. And then what we're doing now is submitting for our initial zoning to say, okay, well, we don't want it to be a religious facility. We're going to make it into a housing development. And our initial plan that we laid out with the civil engineers was well received. They said, okay, we're fine with you pulling this out of the master plan. Does not have to be a religious facility. We're good with you doing residential usage. Now you abide by the residential usage rules. And
there's so much residential around there. I'm surprised
it's all
been anything.
Yeah, and so we weren't really surprised that it would go that way. What I think is that maybe along that southern part of that street, Horizon Ridge Drive, it probably was all various public uses, and then this developer switched to residential, and then slowly we're the last one that is that's called a semi-public use.
Okay.
Or PS classification in our zoning code. So because we're asking for any type of zoning change, they can pretty much demand anything of us because we're not abiding by the prescribed rules. Therefore, they don't have to abide by the prescribed rules. Now, all this costs you about $20,000. I mean, you've got to get the topography done, the actual site boundaries. You retain a civil engineering firm to do that. And they draw it up. They get the exact dimensions and everything based off the survey, and then they take their knowledge of the codes and say, okay, we're going to put a 33-foot wide street in here. And I kind of came up with the conceptual map of how I wanted it to go based on the parcel size. And I wanted to create some good lots in there instead of just running a street right down and then you have homes cornering a busy street. I wanted to pull in and L around, and then everyone kind of lives off of that cul-de-sac. So that part I kind of start your engines, and then they ran with it and then use their knowledge. And I have elementary knowledge, I should say, of zoning. I know that certain zoning classifications have minimum lot sizes. I know roughly how big a cul-de-sac is and how big your right-of-ways have to be, setbacks. I know things like that. But there's a lot of technicality and a lot of nuance to the zoning laws as well. So what they do is take this and get what's called a tentative map. Take all that information that I mentioned and draw a tentative map. And we have our first CPR, which you need CPR after that. That's not what it stands for. Comprehensive Planning Review. And that's about a 3-week process. By the time you get it submitted, the city reviews it. That's a 10-day period. And then they issue you back your comments. So you submit it on a Monday. You usually have your comments back the following Friday. So I shouldn't say 3 weeks, but by the time you draw it, submit it, get your comments back, it's about 3 weeks. And then they have those submittals every 3 weeks.
Okay.
So you get your notes back, and then you schedule a meeting with the city the following Monday. So they got us our comments back on Thursday and said it was a 3-page PDF. Then we can maybe put it up on the screen. It was astoundingly tedious. And it had things as simple as all garages must be 22 feet deep and have an electric car charger.
Which
station in it,
anyway.
Which is what we would do anyway. And now there is new code where you have to have electric car chargers, but we've had a 22-foot garage depth code in the city of Henderson for many, many years before I was even home builder. So, but they put it in there. It's one more thing that kind of crowds it out.
That, it's what the market would require.
It's what the market would require anyway.
It's a short garage. You
want to be able to fit your car and some storage and yeah, exactly. So it was. That's just one small example of the tediousness that comes with this type of plan review, because you're sifting through all those things and saying, okay, that's a given. Of course I'm going to do that. Of course I'm going to do that. And buried in there was, we want the cul-de-sac to be 100-foot diameter, not 86. 86 is the code.
86 is the street.
So we call it a 43 radius.
Okay.
So 86 total in diameter. They wanted 100. They want a 10-foot. That's why? Why? Oh, you want to know why? Because the people at Requisition acquired a sewage maintenance truck that must be the size of a locomotive because it needs a 100-foot diameter cul-de-sac. So we're in this meeting, and the city.
That's why they want that.
They want a 100-foot turning radius, or 100-foot for one truck that might need to get up there in 20 years. And mind you, that all of the other cul-de-sacs in the city are designed by that old code. So I would argue the problem is with the truck, not the cul-de-sac.
No, that's so true.
You would think. So when you put your map to the city, it goes to every single department. Department of Public Works, which is water, sewer. NV Energy doesn't touch it at this juncture yet. City planning, building and standards, those types of entities are all looking at it. So I want to say there were about 12 people on that meeting. And everyone had a comment. And the reason they're in that meeting is because they're responsible for, I think there were 50-something comments. So maybe this one person's responsible for 8 of them. This other person's responsible for 10 of them.
Okay.
So you can see why when one person in building standards looks at it and goes, he better make sure he does 22-foot garage steps. Put that in there. That's kind of how they're thinking.
It's on the plans already drawn.
This is only tentative maps. So there's homes are not designed yet.
Got it. Okay.
So it's people just putting in their 2 cents, right? Someone that feels like they have to contribute. Okay. So you better make sure there's 22-foot garage steps. Yeah. Okay. I know that. I can't get a building permit without that, but okay. Can't sell the houses without that, but all right. I was going to go 14, but I hope everyone had a Fiat or a moped or something. So, they send it back and you're going through it. So you're going through each person and they're saying that, so we get to the cul-de-sac comment and the planner said, oh, this must be a fire requirement. And the fire chief is like, no, we're good with the standard. 86 diameter is completely fine with us. We designed for a hook and ladder. So the biggest fire truck ever.
I feel like that fire truck would be bigger than it should.
Yep, you would wonder. So
yeah,
this apparently I want to see this sewer truck because also these cul-de-sacs accommodate 18-wheelers because you can have, I'm sure you've seen 18-wheelers delivering furniture. And think about you get a furniture delivery. It's going to come on an 18-wheeler.
Yeah, they get in and out of cul-de-sacs.
They get in and out of cul-de-sacs all the time. So what does a sewer truck look like? I really want to know. I'm just afraid to Google sewer trucks and get sponsored ads for them from Peterbilt. The little comments like that. And then zoning says we're going to enforce the 10-foot landscape buffer on each side. The code actually says only if you're upzoning from the adjoining parcel. The adjoining parcel is a townhome community on this side. Okay. This doesn't need a 10-foot landscape buffer. That property to the west of me is an RS6 zoning. Mm-hmm. So we're RS8. So technically we're upzoning. Fine. That's all right. We'll do a 10-foot landscape buffer. And they said, no, we want a 10-foot landscape buffer.
And just
on both sides.
RS6 versus RS8, what is the classification, the differential between?
So most of it is density, but it's also dictates lot size. So RS6, you have to have a 6,000 square foot home site. RS8, you have to have a 4,000 square foot home site. When you click into RS8, it triggers community elements, so community parks, and then different setback rules for the individual homes. So basically, it'll just have a different feel. The neighborhood will, an RS6 neighborhood will have a different feel to an RS8. So we were shooting for RS8, and we thought we could fit our community element in there.
More homes.
I would have fit more homes, but oddly enough, it would have been 8 homes, even though RS8 zoning would have allowed me to go all the way up to, for this parcel, could have been 15. Oh. So it's 8 homes per acre.
Okay.
So 8 homes per acre, and you have to satisfy the other elements. So if you hit something else, like the community's park space, you're not going to hit the RS8. You're going to have to sacrifice a lot because it's a multiplier. Every lot requires 500 square feet of open space. I'm sorry, common element, not open space. There's a distinction. A common element. And the trick is that, and this gets into why we kept losing lots. Every time I talked to the city, I'd lose a lot. So, okay, now you're taking 10 feet off of a 400-foot parcel. We're losing 4,000 square feet of the lot, of the total undeveloped parcel. And it's on this side too. It is a whole lot, really. So we're losing a lot here. And now it's 10-foot strip, so you're probably not losing a lot in its entirety. It's 10-foot strip, so you're probably not losing a lot in its entirety, but you are, now this lot would have been 45, now it's 35, because you had to lose 10 feet. Well, now if it wasn't at least 120 feet deep, now it doesn't fit the size requirement. So you kind of rendered this lot useless because it doesn't meet the minimum. So your common element also is not satisfied by your landscape buffer, and any other kind of easements or anything does not satisfy your common element. So it's all of those requirements plus a common element, and the common element has to be usable. So they want some sort of sidewalk in there, some sort of greenery park, whatever. And I'm all for that. I get it, but is it a little out of context for an 8 or 9 or 10 home subdivision to have a 4,000 square foot park? That's not a usable park. A 4,000 square foot, for context, if you think of, when you look from the air, a cookie cutter neighborhood, that you'd say, boy, those homes are all on top of each other. Those lots are usually 4,000 square feet. So what are you going to do with that park? That's 35 feet wide by 120 feet deep. It's not, you would be forgiven to just not even realizing it's there. You could live on that street and not even think of that as a park, because it's not going to look like a park to you. Yeah. It's going to look like emptiness. And we'll landscape it and make it look nice, but it's not going to be a place where your kids can go play catch. So, and ultimately you have city parks and actual legitimate fields, and that's how I look at it, is that if they were, that, in my opinion, there should be some sort of waiver. If you're within a quarter mile of a major city park, that requirement should be waived. That's not a thing. It's not a thing. It should be a thing. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure with all my sway, yeah, I'm sure they're going to love to hear that.
City.
Yeah. So, and I get it. Again, best laid plans, we've talked about this 101 times. The best laid plans, everyone, oh yeah, we should have more parks. Oh, the homes shouldn't be on top of each other. Okay, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Ultimately, development is a capitalist endeavor. And landowners don't generally care because there's just not enough land sellers. There might be a lot of landowners, but there's not enough land sellers at any given time. So they don't really care. They're just they're capturing a lot of the profit that's baked into the home that you're buying at the end of the day. They got that money. I got a portion of it, but they're getting it. They're pulling forward those gains now. A lot of times landowners are paid on next year's home prices. And I don't want to do that, but I have to. So when you look at a major publicly traded company, which I've lovingly calling them tonnage builders.
A tonnage builder.
I heard from my friend Howard at BDG. He called it a tonnage builder, and I really liked that. They're building in tonnage.
Sure.
So what they're doing is they're looking at a 7 or 8% price appreciation, cut it in half just to be safe. So when they're doing all of their math on these neighborhoods, they're looking at not this year's. So when they're penciling it out, if they think those homes can sell for $800,000, but they think there's going to be 4 or 5% appreciation, they're now going to say, okay, do all the math, but with $840,000 sales prices. Okay. Because there's such a shortage of actual available land, they want to be the most competitive. They want to make sure they're looking at it in the most competitive way so that they don't keep losing out to other nationwide tonnage builders. And that's unfortunately how I have to think as well. Certain areas are different. When there's a lot of land available, like in South Shore Country Club, I can pick up lots there all day long, and kind of does become a race to the bottom, because if I can find 5 or 6 equal lots, I can probably find the most motivated seller of those 5. And then 6 months later, when I'm ready to acquire another lot, I can find the most motivated seller of those four plus whatever else came onto the market. So if land sold like that, acreage for subdivisions sold like that, it would be a lot easier to negotiate. But because there's not enough land sellers or anything available at any given time, you're just stuck with what they want for the land. And usually it's 20% higher than what you would normally expect. So I guess my point is that it's not up to the land seller to worry about zoning. It would be nice if they said, hey, you're making the value of my land. If you can sell this land for 13 homes versus 8, and I have to go to the expense of building a park and all these other components to go into it, I have to pay less for the land or get more for the houses. Yeah. Or make less. And if you're making less, if enough people are making less, enough people exit the space, and then home values go up anyway, you have a supply issue, which is what we're in right now. We're in that still from 2009, in my opinion. We're still in that mode where enough small builders get out of the game. And you're left with the big tonnage builders who are publicly traded and only care about next quarter's returns. To circle back to my point is that it's not that I don't want to do those things. It's not that I don't believe in little community parks. It's not that I don't believe in, I wish I could do 6,000 square foot home sites. I wish I could do all those things and still deliver an affordable product. Unfortunately, the nature of the beast is not that. We're paying almost $1 million for this. We will have almost another $1 million in engineering, infrastructure, the cul-de-sac, everything, the grading sits on a hillside, and it's a mess. It's going to be a lot of work to get these things kind of ready.
Goes in, you're
yeah,
$2 million
easily. It might even be a little bit more. So it may be 2.1 or 2.15. So you can see when that is the numerator. I want to minimize the lot cost by maximizing the denominator, i.e. the total amount of home sites. So I go into it thinking, okay, can we get townhomes in here? Let's just say 2.3 million divided by 23. I'm into $100,000 per pad or door.
Okay. Very
doable in that area because even a townhome would still sell for $500,000 or $600,000 if I did them right. So then I'm starting there at $100,000. Amazing. Let's do it. So you take it down to, okay, then we started getting a little nervous because we were worried about selling 23 townhomes without, and we would have had the common space and all those requirements.
23 homes. Now that makes sense to have a little bit more space.
You do. I mean, and I wouldn't, so that's why I aborted that deal, not because, or that strategy, because I didn't believe I would want to live in that. I didn't want to live in that product.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to live in a 23 home townhome community with 0 amenities.
Right.
We could have satisfied the open space. We could have done it. But then where do you go? Do you build a pool? Do you gate it? What do you do? Do you do dog park? What are you going to do there? So then by the time I factored all that in, it just didn't seem like I could get a product that I liked. So I said, okay, let's flip to single family. At that point, I thought we could maybe technically, legally, if we went R6, we could have gotten about 15 home sites in there.
Okay.
And of course, assuming we satisfy everything else. So I thought, okay, let's start from 15 and work our way back. This is before I even retained my engineer. It wasn't even on the radar. I was laying it out I have rudimentary software that runs like CAD. And I was laying it out and I could not get a comfortable map. So then I was trying to avoid messing with the mountainside too. So I said, okay, let's not mess with the mountainside. Let's take out
a whole nother set.
That's a hillside overlay. We kind of talked about that in the previous episode. They would want more surveys, and then of course it's just a lot more work. Maybe some blasting. It would have been a lot of work, and so I didn't want to go through that. It just didn't pencil out to go from, because I knew I was going to get around 8 or 9. So do I really want to go to 12 or 13, but spend another $700,000 in blasting and site work? And every home still costs. Even the townhomes would have cost me a water tap fee and reclamation fees and all these other per home site fees would have been a little higher. Even though your lineal sewer pipe and all that would have been roughly the same because everything's so much closer, you still get a surcharge for every single door you add into the infrastructure. So when I reversed course and said, let's go single family, let's not disturb 24,000 square feet of hillside, and I'm only working with 100,000 square feet of total parcel. So I lost another 25% of the parcel to not touch the hillside. As a townhome, I would have had to touch the hillside, but it made sense to get 23 townhomes in there. It would have made sense. It would have been enough doors to make sense. So we dial that back. Okay. We preserve the slope. We've now lost a quarter of what I paid $1 million for. So now I lost $250,000, but that will make the neighborhood more beautiful. You're going to pull into the street. You're going to see the foothill of a mountain. It's going to be a small neighborhood, but boy, it's going to be pretty special. It's going to feel like a nice little enclave. So I thought, let's go that route. And then let's maximize what we have. So we did a LiDAR map. This is at this point where I pulled in the engineer. Let's do a LiDAR map and figure out where exactly that slope ends. Where's the toe of that mountain? And then we'll go from there. We could probably cheat it and go 5 foot up the slope and just hope that the city doesn't trigger a hillside overlay. It's all about that little kind of fine line. Well, we could push back 5 feet, and then maybe the back of their backyards would kind of start sloping up, and then they would have a view fence. It would still be pretty nice. But again, I didn't want to push it too much. So let's just go right to that hillside and then go 5 feet past it, or right to the toe of the mountain and then go 5 feet. I got to get a little bit of a win here. So, so we do all that. We lay everything out, and then that's where we got to where we were for our early April submission, which was about 3 weeks ago. So we submit that map that has 10 homes, and I was really, really comfortable, and I knew there was probably going to be a comment on the common area space, but I also thought, can we do a waiver of standards? Can we, because sometimes if it's a small, you could maybe go to city council and say, can I get a waiver of standards? It's only 10 homes. It's all connected, to the main grid. Can you let the people walk to the city park? Is that okay? And maybe just see how they felt about it. And at that point, we would have been into each home site for about $190,000, because it would have cost a little bit less to do these 10 homes instead of 23. So I thought, okay, we're probably going to be at around, let's just call it 1.9. So I thought, okay, we're going to 10 homes, we're at 190,000, but now we've got beautiful single family home sites. They're narrow lots, they're 35 foot wide, but they're deep, and you can put a nice 2,300 square foot product in there, which on new construction in that area is probably around an $800,000 house, maybe $750 to be conservative. So that still really works. You're at $200,000 per home site. We'll water down the actual homes themselves a little bit and see how much we can push the market. Bottom line is the project works. So we send that in, all the comments. What really nailed us were the 10-foot setbacks and the cul-de-sac. And then they said, unless you want to apply for a waiver of standards, we want a 47-foot wide street, where we had drawn a 37-foot wide street, which is technically in the code. So the street is short enough where it doesn't have to be wide, because the thought is that it's only 10 households.
And you're going slowly up there.
You're going slow, and really cars comfortably in a parking lot probably only have 18 feet between stalls. This is twice that. Maybe you'd form an HOA that didn't allow street parking on one side of the street, just so it didn't get too crowded. But again, it was only 10 homes, and there was a lot of blank space because of that cul-de-sac, and it was just a lot of dead space. I thought, there's going to be enough parking here. Every home's going to have a 2-car deep, 2-car wide driveway, 1-car deep, obviously a 22-foot deep garage, as we know, which can fit about 9 cars. So we had something I felt comfortable with, and that 3 pages worth. And she was very blunt with me, and she's been really great, my contact at the city. And she said, I'll be honest with you, the climate right now, you don't want to go for a waiver of standards. Just the people that are composing the city council, the people on the planning commission, she said it's just probably not a good idea unless you want to sit. And at that point is when you probably would retain a lawyer, because you would have a lawyer represent you to go through the waiver of standards and to kind of get those things solidified and negotiated with the city of Henderson. I don't want to go that route, because here's the bottom line. If I give them what they want, I thought, okay, we're going to go down to 8 lots. We're just going to give them the community space. We're going to give them the 10-foot on this side. We will argue the 10-foot on the townhome side, but that's not a waiver of standards. That's just an interpretation, we hope. So I said, okay, if we do that, we can get everything in here. And the lot is very irregular now that we've kind of avoided that mountain. So what we were going to do is do a 10-foot path down to the open space. In here, you wouldn't see the open space. You'd see a little paseo, kind of a pathway, weave through, maybe do some landscape lights, and have it open up onto a 4,000 square foot park. And everything was great. We had 8 home sites, and this is last Thursday. So I'm sitting here going, we have some really irregular lots, but we have 8. So let me start designing a product that can go on these.
And we talked that day.
We actually did.
Yeah.
We did a little.
Thought we had it kind of well dialed in. I mean, I know you were feeling after, sitting on the council meeting, you kind of felt like you had a good gauge on it. And since then, the whole thing flipped on its head.
It did.
So it's crazy.
I spent
just in a few days.
We talked on Thursday, I think.
Yep.
So Friday, I'm saying, okay, I have some office time, and Saturday I have some office time. I have to, before we send this map off, because the cutoff is today for the new map to be submitted. So I said, I have to make sure that I did tell my engineer, run with this map and Monday submit it along with all the other paperwork and all the other answers to the 3-page PDF. Get it ready and get it teed up. And I'm going to start working on the houses just so that I can get excited about this product before we get too far down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I racked my brain. I had 2 lots out of the 8 that were only 70 feet deep, but they were wide. And if you think you got to be 20 feet off the curb, a 22-foot deep driveway, I'm never going to live that down. And then your garage is now the entire length of that. You can't get any house behind that because the garage plus the setback is already 42. You have to be 15 feet off your rear wall. So now you're at 57. The entire lot's only 68 deep. What room is 11 feet behind the garage? You see how challenging that would be. And then the lot itself was irregular, and you're limited by a 5-foot side setback at the narrowest point. So then it ended up with this really weird house, and I was feeling okay about it. And I got down to my 5th iteration. I thought, okay, this one I like. And then the lot next door to it, 5 and 6, were very similar. And I thought if I can mirror it and maybe make it work. And it didn't, by the way, but I was able to get something on 5 that worked, and it wasn't nearly as painful as 6. And then I designed 2 different products for the other 2 lot types. So we have 3 of one lot type and then 3 of the other and 2 of the really irregular ones. So I did all this. And it was Saturday night at around 10:30. And I may or may not have some help from Kim Crawford, some Sauvignon Blanc. There was an empty bottle at my desk, let's face it. And I was feeling so good about somebody, I don't know. Who's Kim? So there was an empty bottle of Kim Crawford on my desk, and I felt really good about it. I thought, I don't like lot 5 and 6, but I love the other product that we're going to put on the other 6. And 5 and 6 will still sell. They'll be fine. They back a mountain. They're going to have other features that are redeeming qualities. They're smaller than I wanted. They were kind of irregular, kind of weird floor plans, but I used that to make them unique and kind of interesting. So Sunday morning, I'm getting up and I make my coffee and I go sit down at my desk and boot up my computer. And the first thing on my computer is that map again. And so I have my coffee like this, like, I feel so good about it. Okay, tomorrow we'll submit. Good. And I zoom, my computer wakes up and I look at the monitor, and you can bleep this out. What? I completely missed that we drew it. I missed it. 2 other engineers missed it. And the engineer's admin person missed it. We didn't calculate it right. We drew it with the 3575 of open space because we had kind of wavered back and forth. And he said, do you want 7 or 8? I said, let's go to 8. If we do 7, it's a different zoning classification and it'll be lower. We don't need a park at all. If we do 7, because then we fall to RS6. Okay. So we go to RS8, but with 8 homes, not 7. And I think in his mind and in my mind, I knew we were doing 8 houses, but 500 times 8 is 4,000, not 3,500. And I have a degree in biochemistry and pharmacology. He has a master's in engineering and probably a bachelor's too. And I'm sure his other engineer has it. And none of us got that math. We all missed it. And we agonized over this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We had a 3-hour meeting on Wednesday, finalized it. Thursday, I say, okay, this is good. Go ahead and go for it. Because Wednesday we had some revisions. And he said, Thursday morning, I'm going to have you 2 revisions, 1 with 7 lots and 1 with 8. 7 is going to be RS6. You're not going to need a park at all. You're going to lose a lot, but they're going to be better lots. 8 is going to have this, but you're going to be satisfied. Figure out if you like it and tell me which one. So that's why I said, go with 8 before I even really looked at it, but I'll figure out a product that'll work there. So I guess we were both thinking 7 with RS8. We just weren't thinking. But after 2 days of agonizing over the plans, I had my coffee and the first thing that boots up, and it was zoomed in on the common area, almost comedic, like cinematic. And it zooms in and the screen lights up and 3575. I'm calculating. It's not 500 times 8. That's 500 times 7. So after all that, I had to scrap it all. And then I agonized over that map for another 2 hours on Sunday morning. There is no way. And we'll put the map over the screen. I want people to see how irregular it was, because we're limited by 4,000 square feet of open space, and every single lot has to be at least 4,000. The lots around the common space were exactly 4,000. The lots over here were 4,500, 4,300. We had room to spare. We had it. We had the square footage. But then we were limited by the frontage, because there's also a code that says how wide lots have to be. So yes, we could have shrunken those lots to 4,000, but it would have come at the expense of their width, because we would have had to shift everything over this way. We couldn't rob from behind them. We had to shift them. The common element has to all be continuous. So all has to touch. We couldn't just rob from some of them and make a common element here to satisfy it. And it has to be usable. It can't be part of a slope. So it was just checkmate, 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 checkmate. And that's how it felt. And then the common area has to be at least 30 feet wide. So we were already going to have to apply for a waiver of standards on that 10-foot paseo that was going to walk in. But he thought, you're going to be able to get it because you're only walking 100 feet, 10 feet wide. We'll draw a nice landscape plan and then we'll open up. And you see it. But believe it or not, those paseos are usually 30 feet wide. They just look small in scale. 10 feet is pretty narrow. That's half of a garage. It's pretty narrow. I wasn't loving that, but it was the best I could do with what I had. So I was already worried about that. Because then you'd argue, well, can't you just make a strip of land on the side, make that your common area element? Great. That's awesome. But it's got to be 30 feet wide. You can't just make a 7-foot park. A 7-foot by 400-foot
or
park.
Or save a little bit of that common area to each home, except they have to be connected.
They have to all be connected. Exactly. So it was a puzzle. In fact, I had it cut out. I had little paper doll cutouts. I was moving them around. Like, if I move this here, nope. If I move this here, move this, nope. Move this here, nope. So it was a couple things. The street being wider took from us, because that took from these lots. The cul-de-sac being 14 feet wider took enough square footage from this lot that we could have, given some to the common element. And then one of the last comments was, we want a 5-foot wide setback around the entire cul-de-sac. We don't want it just on half of it. And there's gray area in the code that would have said, there's a gray area in the code that said we could have sidewalk just on one side, because there's only 4 homes on this side. If you want to get to the sidewalk, you can cross your cul-de-sac, get to your sidewalk, and be inside the network of sidewalks that take you to the rest of the city. Conversely, you could go on this side of the cul-de-sac, just walk down your street on the blacktop. 8 people live on that street. It's a 47-foot wide street. The cars can get around you. They wanted a sidewalk on both sides. The beauty of it is, lot square footages, setbacks are measured from the back of the sidewalk. So not only did we lose 14 feet with the cul-de-sac, we lost another 5 feet with the sidewalk. We lost from 33 to 47. We lost 5 feet as well. And that takes away. So now when you look at this map, and we'll put it up on the screen, it looks like 30% of it is asphalt. This cul-de-sac is massive. It's only 8 homes. Cul-de-sac is massive. The street is wide. And you think about every hard surface sucks up heat.
Oh my gosh. And in Vegas, it's
a huge deal.
Big
it's a heat sink. It's a convection oven. It is. Yes. You've walked out to a parking lot and you feel that heat radiating. Even 8 o'clock at night when the sun's down, it's like a brick oven. It just radiates. So I'm looking at this map and thinking, instead of having rooftops, which are radiant by nature, instead of having landscaping, even desert landscaping with maybe some vegetation, some ground cover, that's heat absorbing by nature, heat reflecting. We have asphalt and sidewalk to make our city more sustainable. Because these are sustainability standards. If you read, and I don't want to make any enemies of the city of Henderson. I love the city of Henderson, especially the people.
Our friends.
They are amazing. I wish I did more in Henderson. I want to build as many 50-foot cul-de-sacs in my career as I possibly can. Did you hear me? You heard me wrong. I don't want fool for you. They're lovely. Yeah. Within the first 20 words of the Henderson mission statement is the word sustainable. There is absolutely nothing sustainable about all of that asphalt.
No, the criteria they're requesting is
not sustainable.
Yeah.
There's so many interests that the person who really wants the sustainability, or the livable city, or the breathable city, or the walkable city, you look at what makes people feel not safe walking.
Yep.
It is boulevard width. There's science to this. There's a formula that how wide the avenue is, how tall the nearest structure is, and how much, if there's a break of trees between you and the street, tells the walkability score to say that's how people are comfortable. If you ever feel like, oh, it feels like I don't want to walk across that parking lot, it's because it's too much horizontal space. Right.
Yeah, you don't know what could be lurking.
Right.
The more space you do feel.
You feel less secure. Yeah. And cars drive faster. That is a science. Cars drive faster on wider avenues and boulevards. So that's why, we have these massive non-walkable cities. We're watching it in real time. You're going to be sitting in your driveway and your neighbor is if you're on either side of that cul-de-sac, your neighbor is 100 feet of asphalt, 100 feet of asphalt from you. The street I grew up on, I measured it out. I went on the satellite imagery. The street that I grew up on was 18 feet wide. East Coast, narrow streets. Mm-hmm. And our homes were set way far back from the road, so we would play rollerblades and bikes on our 60-foot driveway. The homes got the space. Imagine if that same city was designed today, the street would be 3 times that width. And I will tell you, we had a lot of great times on that street, and cars drove slow on that street. We felt comfortable on our bikes with that street, get dropped off from the bus. You just felt comfortable.
So that long driveway where you played, that was your childhood memories. And
Yeah.
now is the
Now
cul-de-sac
that's
has taken that up.
the
Now the
new
house is back on the
homes.
street, and this is all
Now we're
just
20
asphalt
feet
road.
off the street, and now you get to live. Instead, we had a grassy front yard in the East Coast. We had a grassy front yard. You're playing, building snowmen in the winter and planting trees in the spring, and a lot of great memories in that yard. And the home was set back farther. You just felt better. And we've given that to roads now, because there might be a sewer truck that in 30 years needs to go down there. That sewer truck won't even be on the road by that point. These are not going to need any. So I don't want to. It's not a mail truck that goes up there every day. This is a sewer maintenance truck that might never, ever go on that cul-de-sac, ever. There's a chance that it never goes there. That is always a possibility.
Sure.
It's not like fire where, well, fire, there's a pretty strong chance that no one will be there, but maybe someone has a,
But yes.
you hope, but
But
or
you
maybe,
want them to be able
you want to be able to
that,
get there.
right?
Yeah,
And
all
even
for
if they
that.
needed a bigger truck to be able to be more efficient in their firefighting, then
Right.
great, we'll support that absolutely.
Right.
But this feels like that they built something that isn't even going to be practical.
It's not even
for the majority
practical.
of the city.
Yeah, 99% of the cul-de-sacs are that size or smaller, because the codes were smaller before. So
They need a better driver.
or they need a better driver, or someone, got some kickbacks from someone who bought the extra large sewer truck. So it's been interesting to watch it play out in real time. Why our cities look the way they do, why our homes cost the way they do. So now these few little rules on the rule book, effectively we went from 15 to now we're down to 7, because technically if we didn't have to worry about that hillside overlay, I could have made that neighborhood work. So now instead of 15 families living in there, or maybe even 23, but let's just say 15 single family, now you're down to 7. And guess what? I'm not going to just make less. I'm going to build a more luxurious home, because now my lots are much larger. Now I don't have to build a park. Great. I want to, but I don't want.
And people
not
would
my
prefer
books.
to have it in their own yard anyway. It's
That's
nice
right.
to have a park if you want to walk your dog down there, but if you do have, you want to be able to put your own pool, and you want the
Of
yard.
course,
to be
you
a
want
little
the
bit bigger.
privacy
People
and the.
prefer
But
having
what
it right in their
ultimately,
own yard.
what ultimately happens though, is that because I can only fit 7 onto a $2 million land development deal, now the homes have to get bigger. So the yards don't actually get bigger. Homes get bigger, because I sell square footage. I don't really sell land. Ultimately, at the end of the day, no matter what people say,
Ooh,
they're
that's
buying square
interesting.
footage.
Yeah. That's
So I sell square footage. So therefore, I could have either sold 2,200 square feet times 8, or I can sell that same amount of square footage divided by 7. So the homes are going to get bigger. Trust me, I was already working on the schematics for some of them. They take up as much of the lot.
Do they?
Yeah, because I have to now build
Yeah.
a 35 to 3,800 square foot home that's going to sell for 1.5, 1.6 million in order to make this project work. That's why the market is so top heavy, because of these rules. But the bottom line is, the interests don't know that or care. They just say, oh, my job is to make sure that the sanitation truck can turn around here. That's his job. He's not doing anything wrong.
Right.
Fire. My job is to make sure the city's safe from fire. Great. Planning. Our job is to make sure that the city standards that have all been agreed upon by city council and voters and people that put the mayor in office and people that the population at large, the standards that these people have told us indirectly that they want to live in, that's my job. Their job is not to preserve the real estate market.
But is there no consideration for lifestyle that will be happening there?
They
there
think
is-
this is lifestyle.
This is.
That's what they think. Because there's so many moving parts to development into cities, to city planning, I should say, that there's no one sole arbiter of it. There's no one person that sits there like Oz behind the curtain and says, get your Tin Man and get your dog. There's no one that is in charge of that. It's a committee, basically, more or less. It really is. It's a committee
As a
of
case by
people.
case, is there not some rule book that they?
It is, but that's the thing, is that when most of these are rules, but there's always usually a waiver process or something you could fight it. But you don't want to go with the zoning change and about 9 waivers of standards.
Yeah.
I told my engineer that. I said, we are going to pick 1 or 2 waivers. That's it. I don't want to go to them and say, oh, by the way, I know I already asked to not have to do any park space. Can I also do narrower streets? Can I also not do a sidewalk? Can I also not do a cul-de-sac? That's what your sanitation person wanted. Now I'm going to get none of them. So it's like a little kid. Do you want to stay up till 10? and ask nicely, or do you want to go for midnight and also ask for ice cream too, and also ask to go to the park tomorrow, and also
Sure.
ask? So I think that that was.
To pick your battles.
I'm a path of least
things
resistance.
that are going to influence what you can sell, who your buyer will be, what they will pay, how much home they're going to get, how much.
That's
neighborhood
really
they're
what it
gonna
came
get.
down to, is
You
that
have
I
to.
didn't want that fight, because this project will probably pencil better and make me lose less sleep by doing 7 luxury homes versus 10 more middle market homes. I'm already more excited about it because that's what our company does anyway. We build premium homes. So this is in our wheelhouse. This is what we do. So now this product will be congruent with what we're used to doing. And I'm excited about it. And by the way, so is the Excel spreadsheet with the performa on it, where it says, if you sell everything for 1.5, that is a great project. That's a very good project. Way better than 10.
So then I guess that answers my question. Had you known that these obstacles would be in your future, would you still have moved forward with the purchase? But
And it's yes.
Yes.
I mean, had I known, I was already mentally prepared for it, because I knew it was going to be a long shot. I didn't necessarily, and by the way, here's the other thing. I'm choosing to cave on these things. I could fight these things. I could spend 2 or 3 years, make my case, and just develop for the sake of developing and say, I don't care how much blasting is. I don't care how much hillside overlay is. Because I blasted 24,000 square feet of hillside. I can fit whatever I want to in here. I could do a rockery wall, those beautiful boulder retaining walls. I could do a wall like that. I could really get creative here. I could do a ton of site work. I could fight the city too on certain things. And I could probably get my 15 homes in there, and they would probably all be luxury homes. But my interest is, let's get into this project. Let's develop it. Let's move on to the next one. This is not my end all be all. This is not my opus. I'm not here to make this little hillside on Horizon Ridge a 15 home subdivision. I don't care. Make it 7.
Right.
I'll leave 23,000 square feet of preserved hillside, and we'll move on. I'm not going to fight on the common area element. I'm going to reduce the zoning. I'm not going to fight on the street width. I'll give them the street width. Right? So that's kind of, I was prepared, and I think that's why I caved so easily, because quite frankly, I had already run numbers going all the way down to 7. I never went below 7 because I thought, 6 is really challenging. That's going to be really tough, because now you're hitting maybe 2 million, and then now it needs to be gated. Now it needs to have maybe a better level of finish or whatever. There are certain things that aren't going to matter to a 1.2 are mattering to 2 million.
Right.
So
an area can carry anything between there. I mean, there are some, like we've talked about before, there are homes within a stone's throw that are.
There's $10-15 million homes that are behind guard gates and in country clubs, but that zip code has some of the most expensive homes in the city. Actually, I think it does. I think that zip code is the most expensive zip code. If I had to look, I'd have to verify it, but I'm just looking at what's in there. Yep. There's multiple country clubs in there. There's multiple enclaves of very wealthy people and celebrities, and the top 0.01% of our city has.
And so while this is outside of that, you really could build any level between there and I mean,
trust me, I've laid awake at night and thought, I just do a little blister or a little knuckle of 4 insanely luxury custom homes that are $2.5 million. I mean, it'd be risky, but
it would be a risk.
I technically could do that. I think it would carry it, because you'd find that buyer. You'd find somebody for them. You only have to find 4 of them. Yeah. In a city of 300,000.
They'd move slowly. They'd be different, because if you've got 2.5 million that you could put into a home, you'd rather be behind the guard. You'd rather be with it. I mean, there is that trade-off that somebody would make. I don't know, because I guess there's people who don't want.
There's a seat for every yes. So I mean, or an ass for every seat in this situation. So I think I'm still very excited about the project. It's just interesting to me to watch it unfold in real time. That's the bottom line, is that, wow, this is why cities look the way they do. And this is why an older neighborhood has different charm than a newer neighborhood, because they don't have 100-foot cul-de-sacs. That's why a newer neighborhood might feel soulless. It's so much road. It's so much street.
And people will say, builders, they don't build like they used to. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't have that same charm.
And they're right.
But they don't know the backstory as to why. It isn't necessarily that you had some greedy idea to build less houses and put in more street. No, there are these
rules. Trust me, I don't want
to
do. And they'll see, I can already imagine people commenting, oh, they're building more luxury homes. Everything's luxury. Yeah, just the nature of the beast. Or we can just not do them. Because it's that. It would be, I can't do 7 entry-level homes on that. I just can't. There's just, I would be doing it as a charity. I couldn't do it. I tried, but can you just put a more basic product on there and give people really nice lots and really nice homes, and just, I would lose money on it.
And it's a good story. I mean, the story, the backstory and how we got here is really interesting, and things that you don't know about. People don't really think about any of that.
Right.
How we got here.
Right. Well, that's it. That's that one. And I bored the audience enough. I'm not going to get into our other projects, but there's been some funny stuff. Nothing as egregious as that. So, we'll stick to that
story. And obviously, it's a project we'll continue talking about. But interesting to see how we have gotten to where we are, and still lots of headway to be made. I mean, we haven't even resubmitted. So
well, it's technically today. So hopefully they got it in. I don't know. And then the funny thing is, to look at it, we're another 8 to 12 months before. We've got 6 more months of just approval process. Then we got 6 months of civil improvement plans, and then we got 6 months of developing the site, and then I got to build the houses. So very long process, very, very long horizons.
Yeah. And I know you've talked about that upstream. This is the upstream.
Yeah. And then you're hitting a moving target because you don't even know what they're going to let you put there, or what you're able. I shouldn't say what they're going to let you, because there are rules, or there are waivers. I don't want to make it out to be some monster where they're saying, no. I'm picking my fights, though, and saying, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go for 9 waivers. I'm going to get none of them, or 2 of them. And they're not going to be the ones I want.
What works for your business plan? What works for the level of stress?
That's a good way to put it.
You want?
Yes.
I mean, you have your own. That's what makes Trust Home Builders who they are, right? You have your standards and the fights you're willing to put in on. And
that's
the
right.
Things that are priority for you are most important to the builder, to the community that you're putting together.
And what I'm passionate about, getting these projects up and running and going and sold and done before I'm worried about what I get to put there.
Yeah.
I didn't inherit this from great grandma. Right. I have a vision for this lot. There's going to be other parcels. So it's exciting. I don't want to spin it as a negative thing. It's actually been really great. I'm very excited about it, and it's been enjoyable to go through the process. So,
and keep kind of the pivot, right?
We're going to pivot. Now we're here. It's actually, the pivots are fun. They are. And now I'm challenged again. Now I want to go back in my software and say, well, what kind of luxury product can I put there? That's still exciting.
Yeah, absolutely excited. I'll be excited to see what kind of product we put there. Yeah, so
we'll see.
We'll keep watching, and we'll keep you informed as we go. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Trust the Process podcast, and we will see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into the Trust the Process podcast. Make sure to follow us on Spotify to stay in the loop with the latest insights, project updates, and everything in between. See you next time.